This meeting to order. We're going to begin with the Real Estate Facilities and Land Management meeting. It is 5:40. And approval of the minutes for the May 9th, 2017. A motion to approve.
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The discussion items, we're going to start with the update on the Fair Oak Youth Center.
I'm Terry Swain, and I'm a member of the Fair Oak Youth Center Board, and we are in the process of taking over Oakway and providing recreation. Tony Adams will talk about everything else that's happening. I'm going to talk about recreation at our facility. We took over basketball for the first time last year. I want to give you some numbers just to let you know how much we've increased. In 2015, we only offered soccer because we did not have a facility for our kids to practice in. We had 55 kids involved then. In 2016, we added basketball. We had 52 in soccer, 50 in basketball for 102 total. This year already, we've surpassed that. We added volleyball for the girls. We had 35 girls that have never, ever played volleyball come out, which was awesome in our community, I thought. We had 43 soccer and 53 basketball for a total of 131. So we've almost doubled since in 2 years what we had offered. Now, what we're also offering this year, which will be coming up, will be spring volleyball. We did find out that we'll be the only facility in the county that will offer this to girls. Walla's not offering it, Westminster's not offering it because of budget cuts. We're an all volunteer, and everybody's cooperating and just moving things along out there, and we are just so excited. We're also going to add girls softball, which should increase our numbers considerably, and hopefully we'll triple them this year as compared to 2 years ago. Does anybody have any questions about recreation?
Thank you for all you're doing.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll get on. Thank you, guys. We wouldn't even be having our meeting here tonight, or we wouldn't be speaking. You'd have to be having a meeting if you guys hadn't stepped to the plate and accepted Oakway property and then support us in our efforts. But I feel very confident about the short-term future of Fair Oak Youth Center at Oakway. And the long-term future is beginning to look a lot better. Things are starting to fall into place. We've got a ways to go yet, but we're getting there. We have 3 signed subleases right now. We have 2 subleases pending, and there's some interest in other subleases. We only have 4 classrooms in the old library or media center left to lease out right now. The kitchen and cafeteria have been used for 2 community events. Julian, you were one of them, and you too, Ed, you were there too. And matter of fact, we're going to our board meeting after we leave here tonight at 6:30. But anyway, one thing that's going to come up in that board meeting is new furniture for the cafeteria. The school district left the kid tables, folding kid tables, and we're looking at getting moving those out and buying tables like we had at our Nick borrowed for the cotton ball. And that'll help the rental opportunities for that cafeteria and kitchen area. We had a movie night. We had over 200 people there. Big movie screen above the ball field. And 200 people that was there had a great time. It's just that I forget who Clemson was playing that day, but they initially scheduled it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they conveniently moved it to, I think, 8 o'clock that night, so that impacted that some. But like I said, I had a great time. Changing the subject a little bit, the gym floor stabilized. They had some places that had bucked up when we first moved in. We increased the airflow in under the crawl space. A lot of people don't realize it, but that gym got about 18-inch crawl space in under it, and just laid down nicely. The gym floor is in great shape. Well, I won't say it's in great shape, but it's in good shape. If we can keep it that way, we don't have to worry about that. There have been no major maintenance or repair surprises. We have had some minor issues. We've got 2 room units. One of them we got to get a blower motor repaired. It works fine except it knocks on and off, except the blower don't either send out the hot or the cold air. We've got the kitchen I'm going to get to the utility cost in just a minute. But one thing we realized real quick, one of the major users of utilities at that school was the kitchen. And we're not using that now, just maybe periodically when somebody uses it for a barbecue or something like that. But anyway, we've got, that kitchen had a 150-gallon heated water storage tank and 3 on-demand hot water heaters. And only one of those on-demand hot water heaters is working properly now. One of them will come on and heat, but a sensor's bad as something. It gets too hot and it's knocking off, getting the error code. The middle one won't even come on, so we're going to get those checked out, and that's going to come before the board tonight to prove me to do that. So, I mean, you can expect minor issues, but nothing major. No leaks, anything like that. We may have to ask who the county supplier is. I think the units you've got here at Pine Street are similar, if not the same, as the room units there at Oakway. We may have to find out who your supplier is for parts so we can maybe get some parts from them. The security system's working well. No problems. Been called a few times. 2 of them was called lightning and weather, but one of them was when Irma came through. But nothing to be a real problem. We do have the PA system working in the gym now. You can play music from an iPod or whatever through the panel into the speaker, and it's great. I mean, it's plain, it sounds good. We're going to have to work a little bit on the wireless mics. The acoustics is not real good yet with the wireless mics, but we're working on that. They really enjoyed the music for the volleyball games and between games. The kids had a great time. Some of the adults, too. There hasn't been any additional vandalism since last November when the 3 kids broke in. No, knock on wood when I say this, none of the lights that you guys put up have been tampered with, anything like that. They all still burning good. We were just lucky to catch those kids in the act, and I think that sent a message through the community right there, and the community helped us send a message too. Now then, utility costs. I guess this is the most important thing as far as you guys are concerned. They're coming in lower than, well, I won't say they come in lower, they come in about what we had estimated back basically a year ago. The highest month we've had so far since you guys took the property was in August, and that was a total for electricity, gas, and water of $1,981.76. Now, if you go out 12 months on that, that's $23,781 and a few cents. We feel like when the children's center gets operational, they're going to have a kitchen in one of their rooms, a small kitchen, and all that. We feel like comfortable that we can still keep utility costs around $30,000 a year. In the last 3 years that the school operated, it was anywhere from, I think, $51,000 to $57,000 a year. So we're just a little over half. But like I said, the kitchen was a real big user there, and the school district kept the thermostats set on a uniform 70 degrees, summer, winter, whatever. Matter of fact, they walked away and left them on 70 degrees. So the utilities are looking good. We are getting our rental income started, so we'll get our account built up there. My greatest concern long-term, and like I said, I'm feeling better about this because a lot of people don't realize what good shape that old building was in for its age. But as we go along, 5 years, 7 years down the road, we probably will have some roof leaks. We may have there's 2 big AC heat units on the gym, could have a problem with one or both of those. We hope to build our finances up, to handle some of this, but, you guys got a nice metal roof on this building here. It's an old school building, and we'd like to think that maybe 5, 6 years down the road, we got that place filled up, and the community's really using it. It's turned into a good community center, that you guys could help us get some grant money or something like that, maybe put a new roof on it, or if we need it. But things like that, sometimes it's better to do it before you need it than after you need it. But that's my greatest concern, is long term, and that is looking a lot better now. One last thing I want to mention is this is not really concerning Oakway. This is fair play. I think most of you got to realize that that old school building at Fair Play is a community eyesore. And Terry has talked with Glenn Hart about this, and Glenn suggested that we talk with Scott Carroll in codes as a first step on this. And I came up and talked with Mr. Carroll this morning, had a real good conversation with him. And he said that, basically what we'd have to do is he'd come down and take a look at it. And it does have some asbestos in the ceiling tiles and the floor tiles. But take a look at it. He could issue the permit if everything was okay. And, we'd have to get a contractor to do it. And said that he mentioned, I guess it's Mr. Swain Steele, see if he had a place to put the rubble. Now, since that time, Glenn was talking just a few minutes ago with Terry about the rock crusher on the portable unit y'all use to break up concrete blocks and stuff like that. You talked about it in the council meeting a couple of months ago. He said that might be a possibility with the brick and everything on the building. But we would like to get something done with that. The cafeteria we'd like to keep. The old school building and the old gymnasium we'd like to take down. And I think that's what the community wants to do too. Okay, that's about all I've got, though. Have you got any questions of me?
Thank you for taking a project and running with it, all the volunteers and stuff. It's kind of a, it's not a city, but it operates like one down there on both Fair Play and Oakway. Appreciate everything that y'all do, because it's not only impacting that area, but there's kids driving from Walhalla and Seneca and all over to come there, as well as families as well. So I think one recommendation I'd have, if y'all are on the Fair Play for the school and the demo, if y'all would put a proposal together from, I guess they have a board, or y'all are that board, stating that that's something that y'all would like, because otherwise we're not going to come out there and even consider it. It may be now, it may be 10 years from now, but there would need to be some kind of statement from the board that that's what they were wanting to do, rather than us saying this is what. I think that's a lot better from a county perspective moving forward.
The main reason we want to take Fair Play down, it's become a place for drug addicts. And it's a hazard, really, in our community, and it needs to be taken down before it really becomes a haven for these people out there. And it's in a rural area, and there's houses and homes next to it, and you've got businesses also. So that was the main reason why we need to get rid of it. It's falling in anyway.
Well, just bring us a recommendation from the board. That way we at least have some authoritative figure that's over the demo side of things, and then we'll see what we can do to help from there.
Yep. Okay. But one other thing about the building too is industrial development. Building a spec building right up the road from us. And if I was somebody coming in looking at locating a factory there or something, and I saw that old school with grass and shrubs growing in the gutters and grass growing on the ceiling and a fascia falling down, I'd get to wondering really what's going on here. It'd be much nicer to have a nice green area, if nothing else, nice green grass, if nothing else was on it. But I'm looking at it from an aesthetic standpoint too for the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move, Mr. Mulder, the new air system at Oconee County Courthouse.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wanted to bring this before the committee's attention and allow us an opportunity to present to the committee some issues that we're having with the courthouse heating and air conditioning systems, the chillers and boilers that we have at that facility, the control units. We've invited the Honorable Clerk of Court, Ms. Beverly Whitfield, here with us tonight. I'm going to ask her to provide you guys more informative summary of some of the issues that they have with that system. Mr. Lake Julian, our Director of Facility Maintenance and Construction, is also here with us this evening to talk to you a little bit about some of the maintenance issues we're having and the calls we've had over there. And we also have a proposal, if you've seen in your packet, from a company to possibly replace that unit. And the cost difference is actually, if anything, a net zero for us as compared to a maintenance contract that we have on it right now. And we can go into detail about that when we get further into the presentation. But we did want to at least start that conversation with council and see, or excuse me, this committee, and see if we can't get a recommendation to council that we go forward with the replacement of that unit. It was completed in 2003, so it's roughly 14 to 15 years old currently. We're starting to have some significant issues. We, a number of years ago, had to replace a compressor on that system. It was about $25,000. So we thought ahead and put a maintenance contract on it. And at that time, the maintenance contract was only about $9,000 to assist with any breakdowns of the system. Well, we had 2 more compressors go out after that. So we saved ourselves a net of about $40,000 as a result, or $30,000 as a result of that maintenance contract. But due to the age and the continued repair costs, obviously the maintenance company is increasing their maintenance fee over each year and have given us an estimate. So you can see that on the one sheet, existing contract. So seeing how the cost of even the maintenance contract is growing significantly over time, we feel like we have an opportunity to replace that unit with a proposal and hopefully over long term save ourselves a little bit of money and have a better unit. So if you'll humor us, I'd like to ask the Honorable Clerk to come up to the podium, if you don't mind, Whitfield, and kind of describe the issues that we're having with the system and the difficulties it provides in running the court.
Good afternoon. I don't know if y'all have met me personally, but I'm Beverly Whitfield. I've been with the county coming up on 32 years now, and I've been in the clerk's office that long. We've always had issues with it from the beginning, too hot, too cold. But since about 2012, I went back and pulled all my emails and letters that I get from people. From about 2012, we've been having a lot more issues. We are either really cold, and I'm talking 62 and 60 degrees. You think you're in an ice box, or we're really hot, talking anywhere from 80 to 85 degrees. There's no happy medium anywhere. We run heaters in my office on the first floor because we can't get it warm, and then in the summertime it's really cold in there, so we're running heaters. And I've had letters from jurors who said, I really enjoyed being on jury duty, however, I almost froze to death. So the public is out here complaining about it. Judges complain to me constantly. You know, they're in a suit with robes. It's too hot for them. Earlier, a couple of months ago, it was so hot in the courthouse. I think it's when one of our systems went down, and there was nothing that Lake or any of us could do. It was just so miserably hot that I went to Lowe's and Walmart and bought every fan that I could possibly buy and had fans running in courtrooms, which is not a good thing because of the noise. I had one attorney get so hot that she got sick and had to go to her car and sit in her car and run her air until she got to feeling better. So we don't need these kind of things for the county. We are busy. We run in, last week, we ran 5 courts at one time. So we have people everywhere. Of course, more bodies you have, the warmer it gets. And so we really need something done. I would really like to see it to where it could level out. It's probably never going to be perfect, but at least I would like to be able to, Lake could just at least flip a switch and either get me some heat or get me some air. And, but if there's ever a chance you have an opportunity to come, bring your sweater and come on over and see us. But we do have, I mean, it's just bad. I had to apologize to the jury on Monday because it was just so hot upstairs, and there was no way to get it to cool down by the time that they were ready to leave. Everybody was complaining. So I don't like to have to apologize for what our county buildings are doing. So if there's anything, we would really appreciate consideration, and let's get this fixed.
I've actually received some comments from some of the judges that serve in that building with serious concerns about the impact it has on the court. I used to just ignore the clerk years ago about the problem until I had to spend a week over there in a trial. And I'll tell you, it was miserable. One day we were in one courtroom and it was so hot. We were just sweating through. We went downstairs to another courtroom the next day, and it was absolutely freezing. So, I mean, it's just so inconsistent. The energy costs associated with it are climbing through the roof as well. So I used to just ignore her as a newbie here until I had to spend a week over there, and I realized, hey, wait, she does have a problem. Maybe she was telling the truth. But so anyhow, I'd like to, if you don't mind, bring Mr. Lake Julian up to the podium as well, kind of discuss with you mechanically some of the issues, and kind of maybe walk through the replacement plan as Dyken has kind of presented, and why we feel like it's an appropriate
Yes,
approach.
I'm Lake Julian with Maintenance Department, Facilities Maintenance. And I guess, Beverly saying she covered it really good. One issue with a unit of this proportion is that we can't run down here to Baker's or C.C. Dixon and pick up a compressor and change it out. These things they have to be built. And they don't even make the age of this chiller, you can't even buy a new compressor for it today. They have to rebuild one and replace it, and it can't be done in a day. It's going to take a week. You've got to get a crane in there, get the compressor out and change it back. So if it goes down, and they have, like Mr. Mulder said, that was 3 he mentioned, but this went out at least 2 more times than that. And that's a strain on Beverly. It's a strain on me because I'm under pressure to try to keep everybody cool. And it's aged. It's 15 years old. And even our new one we're talking about getting right now. We're not going to get more than 15 or 20 years. 20 would be lucky. 15 is what we're going to really end up with. But a contract with the new one is the only way to go. And I see here on our paperwork, they had given us an initial proposal, and it was higher. They came back and dropped their prices, but I see they have included a $2,500 a year contract for that. Be well worth it. It's theirs, basically. It makes, with this contract, it makes the chiller theirs. If it breaks, they've got to pay for it. We don't have to do a thing to it. We don't have to worry about it. It will be a good asset to the county and the courthouse because we won't have to be running over there 2 or 3 times a day. Sometimes we actually have issues with this existing chiller. And they have proposed, we have discussed this with the technicians, and one of our issues, if you're familiar with the chiller, is it sets in a hole. It's got a retainer wall behind it where you drive around from the teller window. And we're thinking possibly it's not getting enough airflow. The hot air that comes out of that chiller stays down in there, and it just continues to circulate the hot air. And the new proposal is to lift this new chiller up a couple feet off of to get the fans up and get the air out away from that retainer wall so you can get some better fresh air into it. And I think with all this combined, we'll end up with a much needed and better operating system. Any questions?
How many quotes do y'all normally get? Do y'all have, I mean, other ones that y'all had out there too?
Yeah, we'll obviously have to, since it's a higher dollar figure, is to get multiple quotes.
Okay.
This is a company that, is a current
It's the-
provider, so we went to them and went ahead, and just got an estimate, so we'd have something discussed, but yes, we'll certainly have to get other quotes for consideration.
And having served and been in there it depends on which side you got. You got summer and you got winter. There's no, middle of the road on there, so. Appreciate all the work that y'all do on there to try to make it what it is, but I think, the biggest thing, like I said, we get, 3, so we kinda know what we're looking at on there, and the contract, I think, is the key here, because when it's under contract, are you having to do
No,
the work? They do.
they do.
They have a
They
call.
do. Of
Where's,
course.
where's the nearest service person? Do we have like local Oconee County service
No,
people
he
that can do
comes, he
that?
comes from Spartanburg or Cullowhee. One of the technicians lives at Cullowhee up above Cashers up that way, and the other one comes out of Spartanburg, Greenville area. Either one of them can usually be here in a couple of hours, but most of the time the issue just can't be, occasionally it can. But most of the time the issue can't be resolved in a day's time if it's major. And we can assist those technicians with minor over the phone issues. They can call us and talk us through some things, and sometimes we can get things back up going ourselves till they can get there,
I thought they had changed, speaking about the location, I thought they had changed the location of that because of the issue when, this was several years ago, with the airflow where it was located at.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know from the first year that it was in existence, I've been a jury 3 times, and I've had been hot, and then it's probably been 32 degrees.
It has never operated correctly. It has never operated correctly, and we've had in the past boiler issues also. At present, we got the boiler really operating good. Most of those we do repair ourselves. I do hire a company occasionally to help us with that. We do have a maintenance, as in cleaning and kind of inspecting the boiler. The boiler actually isn't a boiler, so to speak, is with a big tank that boils water. It's actually a large water heater. So it's not as complicated or as dangerous as like a large type boiler. But we've had issues with both. But it's a system that I came in after the whole deal. I was in 04 in the maintenance department in 05 and 06 at that time. After the building had already been constructed. And I'm not 100% about the whole engineering design of the entire building. There's some questions as far as heating and air. As far as heating and air, there's just some things that I wonder about, sized right and I guess flow and volumes of air to areas that balancing that type of stuff, if it was taken care of correctly when the building was built. But it's kind of a long ways down the road.
And I think my biggest reason for making that statement is when we get this company in and they install the new unit, because it's really the only way to do it, because it's killing us. When they leave, we need to make sure that this is operating properly, because it's hard to, obviously, it's not the air conditioner's fault if it's an engineering thing, but there may be some changes that we need to make in the building itself as well. What is possible to make, that is. I just don't want them to leave and then we have the same thing here, too hot, too cold. 'Cause
I agree, and I'll discuss it with Scott some. I actually, at one point, Beverly, recall that we worked in the shaft, and the maintenance department reworked a lot of that. The ceiling tiles in the basement were lifting up off the ceiling, remember down there? And I hired an engineer at that time to do some engineering, and I still have that report. and it'd be a good thing to get it out and look it over, because he looked over and made some suggestions on several things, and we reworked the entire shaft system ourselves to make it more efficient, and it did correct a lot of those issues down in the basement area with airflow. And I need to get that report out and just review it, and because that was 5, 6 years ago, 7 maybe. It's been a while. But I may even talk to him and read that report and just make sure there aren't some issues that we could have overlooked or maybe need to look further into.
Mr. Mulder, where would we, on the project cost of $109,000, where would the initial investment come from?
My hope is to discuss equipment financing opportunities with the companies, or, other equipment financing opportunities. That way we can allow the annual savings, that we receive to help make that payment, so it's not an upfront cash payment. I'm assuming and sure those opportunities exist. I mentioned that to this particular representative. He says he's heard of it, but he did not have the authority. He's just a sales rep to discuss those financing opportunities. So that's my hope, is to do a 5-year financing opportunity and allow those savings to pay for it over that time frame. We don't need to stretch it out for long periods of time.
Right.
Over 7 years, based on his calculations, we're going to save $162,000. Again, that's his calculations, and we didn't verify those. But again, I think there's going to be enough savings there. We can potentially, even if it does cost us another couple thousand a year built into the budget, we can, attempt to absorb that.
Well, if your savings was recuperated in, let's call it, I know he's got on here 3.9 in 7 years, and everything's actually working right, because as of right now, nothing's happening. So let's call it a savings in 7 years and paid off in 3 to 5, I would be happy with that. Questions you got?
No. Do you need a motion to pursue the added proposals and estimates?
Yes, ma'am, that'd be great.
Do you want to do up to a certain amount, or are you fine with that 110?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you even want to put a dollar number on it. I mean, obviously, if it comes back to $250,000, we need to rethink it. I mean, if you'd like to put we've got control elements that are going to be built into this as well, because of the thermostats, if you will. More fancy thermostat, and you got control units that are going to be probably in the $16,000 range.
That's correct.
With those, so that's just the actual chiller and installation. So if you want to put $130,000 limit, if you feel more comfortable with that, we can certainly go out and see quotes under that amount. So long as they're sized correctly and engineered correctly to meet the demand. Or we can just wait and see what the quotes are. We can bring 3 back and we can look at it then.
I'm comfortable with, if you get the 3 quotes and it's under that, if you make the motion.
Okay, I move that we pursue this.
Second? All right, all in favor?
Aye. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, and I'll cover it, thank you.
She may end up doing cartwheels out the door, so just ignore her.
I'll do the cartwheel for you.
And Beverly, you're never ignored in our county. So thank you for all you do and your long-term service as well.
I didn't love it, I wouldn't have stayed.
That's right. All right.
But it is going to take at least 3 to 5 years to get it installed, so.
So you telling me to come back after I retire?
We'll have some window units and those little, send her some of those little misting fans down there. Yeah.
They laugh at me about my fans. So if we get this, we're gonna have a sale on fans and heaters.
Mr. Mulder, the update on the Westminster Magistrate.
Yes, sir. I wish I had a very thorough, definitive update for you with some good news, but I don't. Obviously, part of council's goals this year was to look at a temporary location for relocating the Westminster Magistrate facility due to the security and really sanitary condition issues and layout issues of that particular facility. And we've been looking, we have entertained leasing and moving into an available building. We've looked at purchasing buildings. We've looked at assisting with the renovation of the city hall as a joint facility to share council chambers and court facility as a more long-term solution. Our efforts to find a temporary location in that particular area is just, it's very, very difficult. And part of the difficulty we have is even just to lease a building, the ADA access and compliance issues is what we keep running into, is the improvements necessary to improve it for required ADA access. The one option that was presented was to look at the fire station. I met with Chief King and talked with the city of Westminster about that. The magistrate, the chief magistrate said yes, that location would be fine for a temporary location. So it's not like functionally it wouldn't work. Our concern is if you look at the training schedule and the meeting schedule that the fire department has, they're in there almost every night doing training and other activities. And it would be very difficult to coordinate court at night, which they do for the city down there many nights, maybe one or twice a week. They do night court, but trying to coordinate activities with that facility is going to be very difficult and will actually hinder the fire department's schedule as well as the magistrate's schedule to be able to coordinate that. So, you know, we can still pursue that. I don't have an answer for you on a temporary location yet. There's still a few months left in the year to accomplish the goal, so I'm still working on it, like the other ones. But that's about the only update we have for you right now. Like I said, I wish I had an answer for you.
Yeah, I know there was some concern with the firemen on there because we built that as a fire station EMS. Last thing we want to do is hinder their training and everything on there. So it's just thinking out loud on that. Anything you have?
And their response was they don't mind it, but it's such a, they're both such heavy users. They're such a regular schedule. It would make it difficult to coordinate it. If it was one night a week that they could just move some stuff around, he felt like that would be okay. But with it being all day long, offices in there and everything else, it'd just be too hard to coordinate it. So they weren't against it from
Right.
a use standpoint.
Yeah.
It's just the magistrate court is such a heavy use facility that trying to match those two is very difficult.
Okay. Any other business to discuss? Motion to adjourn.
Order, it is 6:20. We need to approve the minutes of May 9th.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes. There's some bullets on the minutes of May 9th. I don't even remember talking about this. And so I don't quite understand them. Can we bring that up somehow? Or Scott, do you have a copy of those minutes?
That's what I was trying to see if they were in my book here. May 9th. No, ma'am, I don't see a copy of those minutes in my book. My packet.
Yeah, this is. Well, yeah, I have it. I just wanted to address Mr. Mulder on this because I just don't remember what this meant.
Does somebody have an extra copy by chance? That I can-
Here, can you just take a look at Glenn's iPad here?
Mr. Hart's more technologically advanced than I am.
Oh, wow. Okay, do you see on the, I guess, the second page, where it says, Mr. Mulder addressed the committee utilizing the revenue and expenditure statement? A question arose from the committee wanting to know why there was a negative balance on the revenue and expenditure statement. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there's some bullets there, and, you know, I'm reading through this, and then I get to where it says budgeted amount is 0. I don't even remember having this conversation. So I'm not really sure what that means.
Okay. At this point, what we were describing was there was a question asked about when you look at the budget document, and really even an audit document, you have operational activities. You have operational revenues and you have operational expenses, and you have a number. You do a subtraction and you say, okay, what was your operational deficit or surplus? Well, generally, you're gonna have a negative there because you then have to factor in, if you look at where it says, other funds, and what it really is called is other financing sources, right? So then you go to your other financing sources / uses, and that's where you have things like your rock quarry transfer of $500,000, which is a revenue source to your operational budget, but it's not a direct operational revenue, so you don't include that up in your operational revenues. So what I was trying to explain there was you have a total revenue of 41.9 million, and then you have total operational expenses of 44.6 million, which leaves you a deficit of $2.7 million. Then you move down to your transfers, which is your other financing sources, and you add in transfers from other funds like your rock quarry, and you factor in those financing sources, and then you come to a net zero budgeted amount. Right, so you don't have a deficit nor a surplus, it's a balanced zero budget once you factor in those other financing sources.
All right.
So that's what that statement is, how much revenue you have left over from expenses before you factor in the other financing sources is the negative 2.7 number, that's how much revenue you have left. Then you factor in your financing sources to do away with that negative number because you have more sources coming in than uses going out. And I've got the budget book right here, as a matter of fact. That I can show you. So, yeah, so for example, you've got the other financing uses down here. You factor in those and you come to a net zero balance budget. So
Okay, so that's what the budgeted amount, 0, that's what threw me off on that paragraph. I just wasn't sure what that meant.
Yes, ma'am. I was just trying to describe the positive, negative. Positive comes to a zero balance, which means it's a balanced budget.
Okay, so it's okay the way it's written then. All right, so yeah, we're good to go. Any other comments? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Okay, minutes approved. Okay, today I wanted to spend some time discussing our fees, possible impact fees and fines. The first item on that list is park fees for non-residents. I continually get complaints from residents because of our fees to attend our parks. And I get it, you know, we levy taxes to pay for the maintenance of the parks and so forth. So why should they have to pay yet another fee to attend? And so the question was, or that's been put forth to me by those same residents, was that other states, other counties have non-resident park fees. So I've been to plenty parks in plenty of states, and I've never recalled paying a non-resident fee. So I set out to find those states and counties that do. And I actually found quite the variety of fees. Most county parks that had non-resident fees applied them to annual passes. And those parks had super duper amenities that people return, you know, on a regular basis to utilize, whether it was fishing piers or whatever. And so that was the only non-resident fee I could actually find applied to a annual pass that somebody was purchasing in advance. So do we have something like that?
No, ma'am. We have one standard fee for each of our classifications, and whether you're a resident or non-resident, you pay that same amount. Other than, obviously, the change that council just made for that one classification of user where we're waiving the fee.
Have we ever surveyed our incoming guests to see where they're coming from in our parks?
PRT has.
They do now that they have the Reserve America online system. We now have a better means of tracking where our users are coming from. Now, if
But those are
just-
campers, not day
campers,
users.
not day users. So
Yeah.
if somebody's a day user and they come in and just drop $2 in the box and then go use the amenity, or pay at the gate, no ma'am, we do not track that particular day use payment. Annual passes we can, because we do get information from them. We do have, out of county, where is it? Annual pass, we have out of county, which is a little higher than the annual pass for in county.
Okay,
So
so
we
we
do charge
do.
a little more for an annual pass for an out of county, and we can track that, you know, based on the information we get.
What does that cost?
$15.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see, no, wait, hang on. County resident is 25, and then annual pass out of county is 50, so it's
Oh, it's
double for
double.
out of
Yeah.
county.
Okay. Okay, well, I personally don't feel that we should change that. I don't like to appear non-welcoming in any way, but from what I've seen, those were the types of fees other counties apply to non-residents, and obviously we have the same ones, so I think we're good there. Anybody else want to comment on that?
How many annual passes do we sell a year?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
I mean, I know I've had one.
You know?
I just wondered about that, because I know, like,
For some reason-
I've always bought one, but it's almost one of those things that if there was a better way, whether it was in,
For some reason, 138 is stuck in my head to answer that question,
Out
but
of
I don't know if that's fact. or not.
yeah, which is, I would think we should have thousands of those, so
I think that number is probably somewhat close, because I think I remember being surprised that we didn't have more people taking advantage of
so
it.
under 500 citizens, easy.
I would think, but again, I'm just going off of what's,
So it seems to me like maybe we need to have a thing out there where we're running, because it's $2, and this gets you $25 into every park, besides state parks, obviously.
right.
But State Park has annual pass things as well, and their in-state and out-of-state rate is greatly varies, obviously. Very similar to this, but, because I think my State Park thing
We can
is
certainly,
100 and something,
Do you
now
actually
probably
use it?
not,
Do you use it frequently?
6-7 times a year, so.
now's probably not a good time going into the season when most of the parks are closing down or reducing services over the winter. So what we could possibly do is in the springtime, do a marketing campaign through our advertisement contract and just advertise the availability of the annual pass and, you know, the benefits that that can give you. Try and get the word out, maybe boost that up some.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing I wanted to discuss were impact fees for new developments, shopping centers. And my main concern was to bring in some revenue to help with the ever-increasing cost of law enforcement and emergency services. And while I was looking at what other counties did for their parks, I also looked at their impact fees. And when I say other counties, I really didn't look at South Carolina. I actually looked at North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee. And I was surprised because I was half expecting to see most of the impact fees being somehow related to roads and infrastructure. And what I actually found was most of them were actually related to public safety and libraries. So the question is, do we want to pursue something like that as well?
Recreation is also another opportunity, big one that, we discuss a lot here that's available through impact fees as well. Now that one gets a little bit, grayer with regard to how you identify the development impact fee for that particular use. Mr. Root has, just in a couple hours, done some quick research to try and hopefully answer questions that you may have here tonight on the process by which we go through, so we can certainly get to that part. But, and I was kind of surprised to see you put it on here. I just threw it out there, that joint workshop, and didn't know how far that would go, but at least we're discussing it. Have good. For example, if we'd had these in place, say, 10 years ago, we were collecting those for fire and emergency services, that could have paid for the, over $1 million worth of fire substations that we put into those areas that were high growth areas. The Cliffs area, the one that we need to look at for the Kiwi Ebenezer area, we've got the two because of the growth in those particular areas, the added address points. This type of impact fee could assist with building those facilities as the law references, due to the growth in those areas. So,
One of the things I found when I was looking at those counties and their impact fees, I looked at the history of when they came about, and they all came about in the early 2001. What happened that we took 17 years to wake up?
well, frankly, to be honest with you, I can't talk beyond, prior to the 2010. I can only talk from 2010 to now. Anytime that word was brought up, and it has been brought up before, there was a time when council asked us to look at alternative revenue sources other than just tax money, and impact fees was indicated as an idea, just like sales tax and everything else. The biggest issue that we've had is the concern that it would have a direct impact on our developers and our builders, and it may deter additional development in particular areas because it increased the cost to the builders and developers, who then in turn had to pass that on to the purchaser. So if a developer develops, let's say, a 50-lot neighborhood, and you have a $500 impact fee, that adds another $250,000 worth of cost to that developer in order to develop that neighborhood.
Be 25,000?
Well, or 25,000, thank you. 25,000 to the developer that could deter development at that particular location.
But does it?
To me, I wouldn't see that happening. All they're going to do is pass it on to the homeowner. Now, the homeowner has to pay more, but when they pay more for the house and the purchase price is greater as a result, what does that mean? It means the value of the property now is higher than it would have been without the impact fee, in my opinion, which in turn generates new economies for tax revenues. So, to me, it kind of is a win-win. I mean, we do have a builder and developer in the room with us here today that I know how he feels about them, and I would certainly offer that to you, Madam Chair, if you wanted to bring him up to answer his opinion on it. But, that's always been, from what I understand, the council was concerned about the negative connotation of an impact fee in a deterring development.
And I can understand that would happen in the last, 10, 15 years, but the constraints on our budget are at a point where we're fixing to blow up. So we can't just keep going the way we have.
Pardon me, didn't mean to interrupt you a minute ago, but part of the issue we have to remember now is monies can only be spent on public facilities that meet the guidelines, capital projects, vehicles of $100,000 or more, and things like that.
Yeah, like our fire engines.
Fire engines, fire substations, lake access for recreation improvements.
Well, not only that, we wanted to kind of spruce up EMS a little. That's gonna cost some.
New ambulances, stormwater facilities, you know, it won't be long and we'll be required to introduce a stormwater management plan. You have bridge replacements that are, the bridges fall below the 100-year storm mark, that if you're gonna replace those, you have to raise them above that storm mark, which can get very expensive. So there's really, to me, enough road improvements and widenings due to increased traffic in particular areas, and that's county roads, but still, we do have county roads around the lake, that require, you know, upgrades. So there's a number of different qualifiers. It's more difficult than what I make it seem. You know, I'm really at a high level. Yes, it's a much more difficult. There's a long process you've got to go through capital improvement planning, planning commission, public. I mean, there's identifying, future growth in certain areas, and then identifying what facilities will be needed to accommodate that growth. The development impact fee is broken down by category, so it's broken down by, is this for recreation, is this for roads, is this for stormwater? So you may pay 500, but 200 goes to this one, 250 to this one, and 50 to this one. So, I mean, I'll certainly turn the microphone over to Mr. Root. He's, you know, more informed and educated on the full, thorough process, but it's a lot more difficult than I make it sound, to get through the process.
And I'm glad to answer any questions. Not pretending to be an expert on it, because wherever I've been, it was in place before when I dealt with it. But the process, Mr. Mulder did a great job on summarizing the outcome in the public facilities. There's a long list from water, wastewater, solid waste, roads and streets, and stormwater to the public safety things that we're talking about in capital, and equipment and vehicles, if they're over $100,000, parks, libraries, all this stuff that can be spent on. To get to that point, though, the General Assembly wanted the counties, the political subdivisions, to go through a process where they got to assess these impact fees with some mathematical certainty. So to do it, you kick it off with a resolution from County Council to the Planning Commission that says, bring us your recommendation on an impact fee ordinance. Planning Commission, to do that, they have to develop a capital project improvement plan. For them to do that, the best way for me to do this is give y'all a memo on what it all goes into it, but they have to go through something very akin to the comprehensive plan development, but even a little bit more specific from engineering and planning costs and estimates. What do we have now? What are we gonna need? This is very boiled down. What are we gonna need? How much is it gonna cost to get there? What can we improve what we have now? What do we need to buy?
Well, but actually, a lot of that data is available. Mr. Mulder had just submitted to us a vehicle replacement plan.
And some of that can definitely be used.
That's
Some
scary.
Some of it's required to be done by a professional in any particular field. I'm not saying it's so onerous or so cumbersome that it can't be done. A lot of counties do it. I'll certainly do it. Usually hiring an outside professional to do it, so it's tight. But nonetheless, it obviously can be done. And then, Planning Commission is gonna have a capital projects improvement plan recommended ordinance that's gonna cover a number of different things, and they're gonna give it up to you all. And then you're gonna end up with an ordinance that's very specific to the areas that are gonna be improved, to the service areas where those areas are located, and how that impact fee is gonna be calculated upon any particular development and any particular development unit. So that's really a pretty quick Cliff Note version of it. If there's interest, which there may well be, probably the best deal would be for me to just do a memo that boils down what I said and then a little bit more, because there's some more to it, and then we'd have it on, it could be in December, on the council agenda for a resolution, if y'all want to consider sending it to the planning commission for them to get to work on it.
Madam Chairman, one of the biggest concerns I have is that, I continually see the fee pop up, and it's like we're searching for fees and we're searching for stuff, and it's, at the end of the day, it's a type of tax. So, I mean, we're trying to work on our budget through other fees, and one of the things that I have seen that has paid off in this county is from new development and new housing setups, and for what that is doing and putting in here, it puts more of a burden. I mean, I think the easiest thing with this, all fees are passed on to residents. So we will always pay the fee. If you raise a park fee, we're still gonna go to the park. We're just gonna pay more for it. So it's a concern of me that if you put these fees out there, it's directly impacting all of us. And it's the same as, if we need to raise more money, do it, the proper way through millage, not through fees. I feel like with these fees, I don't want to say they're difficult to collect, but it takes someone to collect them. And I see the next thing talking about fines and penalties. It takes more of these people to do this, and it's like if we're not willing to do a tax increase, but we're willing to do fees, to me, it just kind of battles. It doesn't make sense, if we're trying to increase what we're trying to do in this county, but we're going to fee people because they're building new developments, because they're new shopping centers, and they're paying taxes. That's my biggest concern. I don't think that's the correct method of doing it.
Well, then how do you explain that so many counties do? I mean, at some point, the burden has to be on the new ones coming in, not constantly on the old ones that are already present.
Well, that's where a lot of places have obviously, it doesn't take you long if you want to look something through all the counties, the tax increases that are continually going forth all around us, very close to us. They have had to do that, so the old ones and the new ones are both paying. That's just part of doing business, and if the situation that we're in from a retirement scenario is going to result in that, and we can't fee ourselves out of that situation through new developments, because if they don't come because of something like that, that's really going to hurt us.
Yeah, but I don't believe they're not going to come because there's an impact fee. That's what I have trouble. Has there been any studies done that impact fees actually deter development? But you know what? Don't bother answering that. I'll research it myself.
Madam Chair, I would say for my part, we know that we need more affordable housing, and they're not, the development community right now is not providing that need. So if we increase the costs further, I think we're just gonna even push ourselves further into a hole. Mr. Blackwell and his team have done an excellent job bringing economic development projects here and creating jobs. But unfortunately, a lot of those folks can't find affordable housing in Oconee County, and so they're having to.
The reasons given for that, for the lack, why we're not building affordable housing, what's the list of reasons for that?
I don't know the reasons, but I can assure you that if we increase the cost of affordable housing developments, it's not going to encourage development. So
They're not being built right now. There must be a reason for that.
A lot of it is profitability of them. You can obviously make more money off a $200,000 house than you can a $100,000 house. But as I've seen through a lot of projects, not just in Clemson, Anderson, and I know we have a new one coming in Walhalla. There's a lot of people that's interested in that market. And, I've been married 15 years. So 15 years ago, when I was looking for a $100,000 house, it was a decently livable house. Now $100,000 is quite scary. I only know of one or two houses that I've been in that, for a family of four, it is extremely difficult to find affordable housing in here. And that's the one thing that I'm more for encouraging development and growth rather than going through this fees. And I have seen it. I agree with you that I have seen fees and fees again, and it doesn't, look very closely in South Carolina and other counties and see these fees. But from the direct correlation is the developer's not paying the fees. your residents that are living there are gonna pay the fees. And so that's the thing that I look at the end of the day. Would you rather your person pay a fee, or would you rather them pay a tax and you solve the problem at the end of the day? And to me, new development, more growth, controlled growth is a way that we solve all our problems moving forward. And we're moving in the right direction. I just disagree with feeing people.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly understand the purpose of an impact fee is to place the burden on that particular development for the new burden that they're placing on our existing infrastructure. I mean, I understand the logic, but where I see a problem is we're not getting our demand met now for housing. So we're just gonna be hurting that effort even further. And I mean, I talk to realtors and developers, and they say it's so expensive to develop. And I mean, that's one of the things I've heard is it's so expensive to even put in the roads, put in the infrastructure within the development that they'd rather do a few big houses, you know, on the lake or wherever, than do a whole plow a bunch of new ground, and do a large scale project that's more on quantity, not quality. And so that's what I've, you know, talking with folks, that's what I see. But we need more affordable housing.
Changing.
You know,
That's where we are now, and I feel like, you know, we painted ourselves into a corner on that. So how do you get out of that?
I think we need to make it, I'm not saying we should incentivize people to develop single-family affordable housing. But I mean, one of the things that I'm really going to be working on here over the next year is in my district, Utica, the Mill Hill over there. I think there's a lot of opportunities working with Habitat for Humanity and Ripple of One and some educational folks and working on grants to get rid of abandoned buildings and then start revitalizing and providing a means for housing to be built in there. That's one opportunity I see. But I don't know. I just think impact fees right now, we're not seeing the growth in the housing, in the affordable housing that we really need to see. It's not like there's too much growth in that sector. I mean, we could talk about commercial developments and things separately, but for my part, I'm opposed to any impact fees for residential construction. I don't think we want to hurt that industry.
Madam Chair, just keep in mind, Ms. Kane, when you talk about affordable housing, generally those type of developments are going to locate closer to a municipal center that's going to be closer to work and closer to amenities that already exist. You know, you can actually identify geographical areas within the county to assess these fees. For example, recreational lake access is something that Mr. Root and I talked about, and we'd like to talk about further, but we feel like Fall Creek or any other public lake access areas could be a qualifier that you could set up the development impact fee around the lake instead of down where maybe affordable housing will be located, so that they're not impacted. You know, if you have developers buying up, you know, 50, 60, 20 acres around the lake and now continuing to use up lake property that could be used for lake access for people, you could potentially assess an impact fee, a recreational impact fee, to provide a conservation, if you will, through public lake access points around the lake, which is something you guys have discussed before. Therefore, the people around the lake are paying that, but nobody else is. So, I mean, those are, I don't want you to base your decision purely on because you don't want to impact somebody. You don't have to. Mr. Root's also going to research, I think, whether affordable housing and certain qualifying projects are exempt from paying development impact fees as well. So, you know, there are certain improvements you can make in certain areas and only assess the development impact fee on that particular area that's causing that demand for that improvement. So you don't have to hurt the affordable housing folks and others. So I don't want to say you can pick and choose, but you really, through proper planning and forecasting and identifying demand, you can assess those development impact fees in those areas that you can see need them.
Yeah, I couldn't find it right offhand, and I don't have the whole statute in front of me, but my recollection is affordable housing, and you may be talking affordable housing in two different definitions.
Yeah, I may not be
Affordable
using the
housing-
proper legal term.
Well, I mean, affordable housing, like, this is some housing that folks who are making such and such money can afford, who are working at one of your manufacturing facilities.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about it.
Versus low-income housing.
Right, I'm not talking about subsidized housing. I'm talking about somebody who doesn't want to remodel a ranch that was built in 1956.
I don't want to get involved in picking and choosing what developments get impact fees and what doesn't. Well, if we're going around the lake, that's your district.
And you know what? I really don't mind, and I'll tell you what, because, yeah, it is my district, but if you look at my area outside of the lake, I mean, we've been paying taxes for years, and we've got zero services, and I don't want to get into that tirade, but we do. So, you know, if you raise our taxes to pay for a new development coming in because we need another, you know, fire engine, you know, I think the burden should be on the new development, not on the existing ones.
But that new development is also gonna create, increase the value of the mill and also pay pay property taxes over the long haul.
Yeah, they can pay for their fire engine as well. That's how I see it.
Actually, there have been studies that residential development actually costs us more money than we would get in the long term. It's the
yeah.
commercial and industrial, especially on the schools. Now, we're a little bit of an enigma because a lot of our growth in residential is retirees who don't have children. So we're a little bit of a different variable in that formula than, say, you know, I don't know, Lexington or a Richland or something
Sure.
like that, where you have young families moving
Coming
in.
in.
But that's also where we're trying to get. And
We
heard a
need
lot of
more young
discussion.
families,
We need
yeah.
more young families. So the more residential development you get for young families, it actually costs the county and the school district more than what we get off of the taxes for those properties. So you gotta be careful with that because residences has been proven to cost you more than what you gain.
But when we
The school
land,
district doesn't get 1 cent out of that.
but when we land a project, an economic development project, and we have no workforce, you know, God forbid we get to the point where we don't have workforce to fill those jobs, that will hurt our economic development progress going forward. And as we continually talk about and think about, you know, if Duke Energy does, you know, as I think Ben Turetsky mentioned it at the last council meeting, if there ever is a point where Duke is not paying 30-40% of Oconee County's taxes, we're going to need a sustainable tax base that I think under Act 388 is only going to be found in the industrial or commercial sector. And yeah, residential ain't going to do it, but you can't have that critical mass of industrial and commercial without people to work there. And that, I mean, long-term, that's what we got to be thinking about.
And some time ago, I had specifically asked Richard Blackwell, what would it take to replace Duke? And he said 38 Borg Warners.
Right.
And so that's not even practical, you know, from where I'm seeing. So,
Why not?
huh?
Why not?
Well, if you want to turn this county into an industrial complex, fine. But then all these retirees are going to up and leave because that's not what they came here for.
No, I think that's where we have to have more technology-based companies that are providing very high-paying jobs and using very valuable equipment to
But look what
manufacture.
Amazon did to Seattle, okay? Look what Amazon did to Seattle. It raised the cost of living so high there. Yes, it brought in billions in investment, but it raised the cost of living so high there that they have working homeless. Okay, I'll send you the article. It's really eye-opening. And many of the cities who have put in bids for their second headquarter, Amazon is opening up a second headquarter somewhere, are now withdrawing their interest because they're worried of becoming another Seattle.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily talking about an Amazon headquarters. I'm talking about research and development companies that would cluster around Clemson University, that would be high-paying jobs, high-value companies. I mean, Amazon, yeah, everybody like to have Amazon, but we don't have the population to support that bid. They want, well, they need 50,000 employees.
1,000 employees, yeah.
We're not even, I mean, somebody else can have that one, as far as I'm concerned.
Madam Chair,
Yes, I'm sorry.
we need the impact fees, because every time somebody comes in or developer comes in with a hot idea, just like some of the ones we've discussed, project so-and-so, then it comes up. Well, the existing taxpayers, we gotta kick in more money for fire stations, we gotta kick in more money for sewer. The developer, he comes in, makes the quick lick and leaves. He done boogie down the road, and then all the infrastructure, more deputies, more this, more everything falls back on all the taxpayers in the county. His next stop is Miami or wherever he's gonna do his next development at. It's not fair for the rest of the taxpayers. If you're gonna come in here with a super hot idea, as one of the ones we've discussed, and then, I want a railroad tunnel. We got no access. What are you gonna do about access? Ain't our problem. We ain't making the big bucks off the project. He's making the big bucks, so he ought to have to pay the impact fee. And it alleviates the increased tax burden off the existing taxpayers that are already here.
Madam Chair, can we offer Mr. Root to just put together a memo for you guys that's a little more thorough in its explanation, just so you have that? And then maybe
Absolutely.
we can continue this discussion. I mean, you can still continue tonight, but I think we still need to at least get you the memo, and that way it kind of gives us a little more to maybe discuss at the next meeting or something.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll continue the discussion then.
Just to make sure, Madam Chair, and everyone, I'll include just a breakdown of the ordinance, the case law that surrounds it, and the AG opinions that are important to it. And then kind of the impact fees. We'll just do a survey on maybe we can get some, social science type studies that have, what has happened when jurisdictions put in impact fees. And
Yeah, I
is there
already
anything else?
made a note.
How much money are we talking about here?
Well, I mean, obviously, that's gonna be driven with formulas with regard to the cost of the capital projects themselves. So, I mean, the impact fee has to be set not just on a random figure. It's gotta be set based on unit cost of projected growth divided equally in order to generate a certain dollar figure to pay for whatever that capital improvement is. So let's say it's a $500,000 fire station, and you project you're gonna have, 100 units located in that particular area. So $500,000 divided by 100 is 500. Is that right, okay? Since I made a mistake on the other one.
5,000.
5,000. So you got $5,000 per lot that you would charge to pay for that lot. That's just the example. You probably have more than 50 units. I mean, or more than 100 units. So that.
So take I guess the last one on that I'm thinking of, like, with Shadowwood, 60 houses in there. So each lot would be increased by $5,000 for an impact fee.
If you were trying to pay for a $500,000 station, and that's the only growth you forecasted in that area. So yes, if you're building the station just because of that one neighborhood, then yes, they would pay that, whatever the number is. But generally, you look at a larger geographical region, and you would say Shadowwood, and let's say this was before Wexford was built, and before the other neighborhood down there, I can't remember, Davis Creek or whatever, and then you would forecast out Epic, Hartwell Village. So you take a particular region that would all benefit from that fire station and forecast out the number of developmental units you would have, do that math, what's your recovery time, and then everybody would pay. So I very seriously doubt you'll have a $5,000 impact fee unless you start doing multiple capital improvements in that particular area. Schools.
But the impact fee to that developer could be several hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly.
It could be, depending on, I think I ran just in my head the other, an example, it was like $250,000 earlier, that it could be, depending on how big the development is.
Which drives up the prices of development, which,
Which drives up the value of land, which drives up the value of the mill.
And-
Sure, but
But
with
if
this
it's
is-
driving up the value of land, we just talked about in Seattle, we have working homeless and we're talking about having affordable housing. So it's like we're talking about the same thing, but we're trying to fee people out of all of it. I mean,
didn't
that's
say it was
what, I mean,
easy.
that's what, I mean, the fee goes to the homeowner.
But why should,
Yeah, but he just finished telling you in certain affordable housing areas, they would be exempt, so we are not comparing apples to oranges here. Right?
I mean, obviously, you could design it to where it's not assessed in areas where you would have an affordable housing development. I don't think you can just provide an exemption for a non-subsidized, development.
But housing can go from 100,000 to 150. That's what we're missing here in our county. I know some people affordable may be a little different, but I hate to think that a developer coming in purchasing a piece of property, and we've talked about property. I mean, think about a guy that has the piece of property right now that goes in here and suddenly we're gonna put these impact fees, and we're talking about in a planning thing with misfortunes of somebody's land, and we're, not wanna do this, and all of a sudden we're gonna smack impact fees on a guy that has 150 acres that he's trying to develop, and we're talking about not wanting to do, corridor planning and that, and it's like all of a sudden we're, talking out of both sides.
yeah, I mean, this is a direct cost to development right up front, and I would assume more so than the corridor planning we talked about. I mean, that corridor planning is for safety, traffic flow, and making sure that our county doesn't turn into other areas that have been spoken about. But I don't think an impact fee is going to address those concerns. That's just going to raise the cost of development. So if you're concerned about making sure somebody can do what they want with their property, okay, fine, don't support corridor planning, but don't support impact fees either. I mean, that's just, you can't say we don't want to make development more difficult and then talk, favorably about impact fees. And I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but, I mean,
No, this is a good, healthy debate, but the issue we have is that development that you're encouraging is adding additional cost to our budget in order to service.
And then you guys just want to raise our taxes to pay
We have
for
to
it.
accommodate how to do that. I mean, that's the only concern, and that's
I
where
don't
these
wanna raise any
impact fees
taxes.
are beneficial.
Okay, so how are you going to pay for the cost of the extra services?
There's pros and cons to everything, and
Well,
there's
yeah.
pros and cons to an impact fee, obviously. But the whole premise behind them is just that. You let the development coming in that's causing the increased demand help pay for the cost of that increased demand over time. Again, this impact fees are not gonna be a solution in the first year. I mean, it takes time in order to do that. So you don't build the station first, you wait and let the demand come in, and then you accumulate, and then you build the station at a certain threshold, once the development causes the demand for that. But
Scott,
there's no easy answer.
yeah.
other counties already have impact fees. They got sewer impact fees, they got, public service impact fees in South Carolina. Go try to put a develop in like, one into Folly Beach. They're gonna tear you up with an impact fee. City of Charleston already has it. So, it's done everywhere. It's not stifling anything. But it spreads the cost out to where we go sit up here one day, he says, oh, we allowed some ritzy subdivision to come in and now they want 5 deputies down there all the time. They're demanding 5 deputies. Well, who's gonna pay for it? We gonna spread the costs out of all the taxpayers, or we gonna say, hey, you put this thing in, you knew the rules up front, you knew you were gonna have to pay for it up front, so how about the sewer lines? How many times we sat here, well, we gotta take money out of, this for more sewer lines. The water lines ain't big enough, and so on and so forth. The water lines fall back from the municipalities. Is it fair for the municipalities to up the taxes on all their people? Cause they ran a water line way outside of the city limits it's not fair. so they ought to have, pay the impact fee to the city for the water, the sewer impact. You know, it's only fair.
Well, and there's other options too, special purpose districts, TIFs, tax increment financing too. I mean, that's where you're spreading the cost out among all those who benefit, not just the people who are bringing in new demand, because everybody's gonna be using that fire station, or that police substation, or that baseball field. So, I mean, I don't think it's either impact fees or nothing. We need to talk about all of our options. I mean, up at the Kiwi, that's special tax district, right?
Kiwi Fire District.
Kiwi Fire District, yeah. I mean, and if we planned and say, hey, or if we've looked at what might happen and we say, hey, there's gonna be growth here, maybe we ought to put it up to the voters and let them decide whether they wanna do a special purpose district or special tax district. I'm probably misusing the words here, but special tax district.
Special purpose is created differently.
Sorry, yeah, excuse me. Could you maybe include that in your memo, just some basics on those?
Yeah, let's do that. Let us put a memo together for you with some information, and you guys, that was a good introductory discussion, I think. So we'll get that information and see how the discussion continues. Is that fair enough?
Yes. Okay, my next, fines, penalties for lake overlay violations. We're going to hold off on that right now, because according to Brad Kisker, the lake overlay is so ambiguous with so many big holes, you can drive a truck through it. So let him seal those holes first.
That was gonna be my response, but he did such a great job of wrapping that up.
Okay, and I put other just in case anybody else wanted to discuss something else. Other? Other? All right, the vehicle replacement plan. I was looking through it, and it's kind of scary, especially the total cost, but we're used to seeing the vehicles that we're going to replace in their individual budget areas. So I'm not used to seeing the bigger picture, and that's what you sent. And so, for instance, when you didn't have the totals for 2017, but I know that, we purchased, the only one thing I can think of was the fire truck for West Union. But there must have been a couple of extra things, maybe for the sheriff.
Yes, ma'am. We had approximately roughly $450,000 of sheriff vehicles. I've got that list. Ms. Price brought that to me today, so I've got the list of the 17. So we purchased about 15, some of them on grant though, but 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 17 vehicles in 2017 for the sheriff, which is a staple in our budget. The coroner in 17, we replaced his old coroner vehicle. Now we've kept the old one as a spare that he uses if the other one's out for service or something, so he still has a vehicle to use. So we replaced the coroner's vehicle, and that was roughly $40,000. And then...
So what did the overall total look like? Because that's what I wanted to compare the others to. Because in the subsequent years, it's 5 million, it's 2 million, it's 3 million. And I didn't have a frame of reference for that quantity.
Give me just 1 second.
You know what I'm talking about? Did you see that document?
The one that's been ignored for 20 years.
For 20 years, yeah.
Okay, the sheriff was, again, with round numbers, let's call it 1,176,000 for the sheriffs, and again, not 1 million, I must have added 18 in there. 280, 250 plus, so 67, that's 97, 6, that's 90, 30, 61. Oh, did 900,000, not 90,000. $625,000 for the sheriff. And again, some of that was using grant money, so that's 625. Coroner was 40, so that's gonna be 665. And then we had one fire truck, and that was we didn't do two trucks, we just did one. The one was spent from the year before, right? Okay. So we had another 400,000 for the fire truck, so that's 1,065,000. And then we had we bought 2 used service vehicles for emergency services as well in 2017, and that was 20 and 60, it's 88, so 88. We got a vehicle for PRT, an Explorer, to replace the old Explorers, that's 26. And then we replaced the old 1994 Jeep Cherokee in community development, that was 27.5. And that was it. So roughly about $1.2 million worth.
Okay, so would you say in a typical year, we spend between 1.2 million and 2 million on replacement vehicles, or is that exaggerated?
Typically, in the past, it's gone up and down. It's hard to say typical. It depends on whether we have a capital lease available to us or not. We actually had a capital lease available to us this year, but in an effort to cut the budget down, we did not propose issuing another capital lease. We saved that money in the payment in order to balance the budget. So we've spent anywhere from 4 million to 2 million to $1 million. It just depends on the budget year of that situation. So we, these we concentrated on nothing but vehicles. We haven't even talked about the deference of equipment that we have not bought over the years and we're trying to survive with as well, because that can get very expensive, depending on the type of equipment. So I'd say, on average, you're looking at probably anywhere from $2 to $3.5 million worth of needed equipment replacement over a time frame, over a period. If you look at that plan, we have avoided and deferred costs so much over the last 10 years that it's caught up to us, and it's going to take a big chunk in the beginning. And I want to make sure you understand that this plan, this is not etched in stone. This is not, hey, this is the only way it can be. We defer and push things off that we feel we can survive another year on. So we may not have to replace this car in 2019. It may be okay, and we'll push it back another year. But those are the kind of things that if you do too much of, like we have, all of a sudden, boom, you got all that stuff you deferred that is hitting you now. Or you got fire trucks you purchased all in 1 year, and you're having to spread out the replacement of them. So, but yeah, if you look, you can see it gets down to about a $2.5 million average is probably where we're going to end up with about 3.8 proposed in fiscal year 18 and 19. So, but we only did 1.2 this year, and of that, really, a third of it was the standard vehicles we replaced for the sheriff's department.
So if we budgeted 2 million, it would keep us from kicking the can down the road. It's been done years and years.
Yeah, so I think if we had a $2 million allocated amount, we may have to defer some bigger stuff for another few years till we can get 5 years down the road where it drops down to 1.5. But I think we can make it work. We may, maybe in the first 2 years do 2.7, and then 3 through whatever do 2, and then we can drop it down from there. But yeah, I think that's a good starting point to get it done.
Our fire trucks are looking at, it looks like, seems every 5th year is what it seems like we've got. I know we've had a lot here because we were so far behind, but it seems like if we do that every 5th year.
You've got 4 years, 3 years, or excuse me, 4 trucks, 3 trucks, 3 trucks, 3 trucks, 3 trucks, 3 trucks, 4 trucks, 5 trucks. So Yeah, it's not every 5 years you have to do a big one, but every maybe 7 years, you'll have 5 vehicles instead of just
Right.
3.
I'm just thinking like if we planned and you're looking at that 5th year and that 5, 6 and purchase on the 7th year, it would be easier than us trying to do it the way we are and find the money the time period. I'm just trying to think, planning this out so we're not in the issue that we are buying a fire truck or 2 fire trucks a year, or every other year. So because we've, let's let them go so long.
Yes, I mean, the plan that's been created to try and help ease the impact of replacing 20 vehicles at one time is to spread them out over time, in addition to the other vehicles you've got. And the fire commission has laid out that plan, and that's incorporated in here
Yeah.
they sent you. And that's what they're recommending, to
Okay.
ease into it instead of doing a large impact over a few years.
Okay, anybody have any other questions about our vehicle replacement plan?
What do you have in the current budget this year for vehicle replacement? 1.7,
The sheriff
yeah.
and 500, 490, whatever thousand, that's the sheriff. 2018, obviously you had 11 cars for the sheriff. 17, 17, 17, 17. Yeah, that was missing the fire. One fire truck. Who's this capital vehicle right here? The 160. The sheriff vehicles at 400. So 160. Is that the emergency services? Is that the 2 rescue trucks or whatever? And then you had 2 rescue trucks for emergency services. So roughly $936,000. And that's about all we. That's all
So you need to add $1 million to the budget for next year to get us on track.
To get us back on track all at once, $2 million needs to be added to that $900,000 next year.
Okay.
And then we can slowly reduce it. But if you want to get us on track over a few years, yeah, I mean, adding $1 million to that would be a good start. I mean, it would certainly help. And knowing that, if we knew what the number was going into it, then we could make adjustments to what we can defer and move around and repurpose and things like that for how long we need to, and redo the plan based on that number. What we presented you as a perfect world scenario. This is what we propose as a perfect real-life scenario. Adjustments can be made if we need to make them.
So 1 million would be a step in the right direction. On
1
top
million on top of that.
of that.
That's correct.
Understand. Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving right along. Discussion regarding potential funding for priorities. Tell us a little bit about the Recreation Task Force.
I'll have a committee meeting minutes, on 11/21, to discuss that, during the committee meeting reports.
Have you even touched on funding yet, or are you incorporating that into your discussions?
No, I'm not incorporating funding methods into that method. I think that would not exactly be where that should be headed. Mainly the Recreation Task Force is to identify issues and then projects moving forward on there. The funding method would be determined, by us. I don't know what you're.
Mr. Davis, can I step in? One of the things we're still trying to also nail down is cost. How are their budgets actually calculated, and where do the costs go? How do they support county residents versus city residents? So really, Mr. Davis has started in a great spot, as we need to learn about where your costs are going and how many residents are county versus city residents. I've submitted a form to all of them that they need to fill out for me to give me 3 years worth of data so that I can run the analysis on that. I don't have those numbers back. I do have only 1 year from Westminster. So what I would do is go through and run a quick analysis or a thorough analysis on the number of participants, proportion out costs, proportion out revenues, and all this, and go through a long formula to really figure out what is the net cost that the cities are absorbing on behalf of the county to service county residents. And then, factoring in increased concessions, and I mean, I'm factoring even revenues into this to come down to a bottom line number. That's the first exercise we're trying to go through, and I'm still waiting on information from the cities in order to kind of decide, okay, is there funding needed from the county, how much? Then we as a group can talk about, do we want to try and equalize that sum and provide a funding source? So we're in the very beginning stages of the numbers.
Okay.
And I will have a report on the 21st. We also have our second meeting scheduled for the 21st, and we had, I think there were 16 of us. Had some really great
That's
dialogue questions, and oftentimes a lot of people were like, this is the first time we've ever been asked what's going on and what our opinion is, so it was very well thought. I appreciate Mr. Mulder's help that day as well, and then what Miss Smith has done to help try to get that up, because there's a lot of information out there, and it's not in a manner of showing exactly what we're trying to get, although they do have it set up. It's just a matter of pulling that out. And I think by after the meeting on the 21st, when we have our next council meeting, which would be on the 5th, I'll have all that set up and, to show what those costs associated with that is and then where to go from there. But I have not discussed any kind of funding or anything until we can identify what kind of where we're headed.
I guess my question is, do you anticipate adding costs to our next budget based on the outcome of your meetings? Are we going to get a bill?
Well, my whole hope is to paint a picture on what recreation is. And my biggest concern is this county's not putting, our youth first. Our future leaders of Oconee first are in any way second or third or fourth, as a lot of people feel like on there. And they've kind of been on the back burner. So my point with all this is to understand where recreation is heading. And I look down the road, like in my district with Westminster, struggling with budget cuts. We talk about, putting the burden on our cities. This was one of the things that I'm trying to identify. So in 5 years from now, we actually have recreation in Oconee. So does that, result in county funding? Quite possibly. Is that something that I think we should do? I think we should support our youth with everything that we have, because we're either going to pay for them on the front end or we're going to pay for them on the back end. And that's the thing that I look at from recreation is going to build our community. And unfortunately, this community has not put a huge emphasis on recreation in years, and not just in the youth, but my age and, the senior citizens. I mean, there is not a lot of recreation, so it goes further than just, playing basketball in one of the gyms. So that's where I plan to take that group.
Okay, very good. Anything else? Any other business? Mr. McCall, you had written a note, in case you didn't make it, regarding recycling. Mr. Mulder, do we empower the staff at the recycling centers to encourage people to put things where they belong? Are they permitted to discuss that?
They are, and they're actually encouraged to. If they see somebody walking up with cardboard, they're encouraged to guide and direct them to put it into the cardboard compactor for recycling. A number of times, I think they get a little discouraged because they do have some residents that tell them they don't throw it in the trash whether they like it or not. But yeah, they are empowered to, and they're actually encouraged to help guide and direct garbage or recycling.
Unbelievable. That galls me.
It happens all the time.
Somebody
You'd
would
be
just
surprised.
say, no, I'm gonna throw this away. So
I
it
saw it
costs
myself.
more money for the county.
I saw it myself out there at the recycling center when the attendants came up. Guy had a cardboard box full of
Oh,
trash.
I believe it. It's just,
And he went to go throw it over, and the attendant said, "Sir, you can dump that in there, but can you deposit the cardboard to be recycled?" I'll throw the thing wherever I want to throw it.
That was too much trouble.
but he'll complain if his taxes go up because we have to pay more in tipping fees.
But for the most part, the most of the residents that come out there, they'll listen. Oh, okay, I can do that. Whether they do it the next time too, I don't know, but yes, ma'am, they are empowered and encouraged. I hope they feel that way. If not, then.
They approached, several of them have said they feel helpless because, you know, like I said, they get chewed out, they get, you know, it's kind of a thankless job, and all those people at the recycling center is doing a great job. And how many times you go in there, they got a pole with a hook on it. You ask them, what's that for? Well, that's to fish the garbage out of the cardboard and the cardboard out of the garbage. And this is costing the taxpayers money. And the poor tenant, while their backs are turned, there's some idiot throwing it in there regardless.
Yeah, the attendants will go over and handle the recyclables and take the carts and, you know, obviously deposit the commodities into the containers. And while they're over there doing that job, or even going to the restroom, I mean, my goodness, they go to the restroom, they're just throwing trash in. So you're right, it's very difficult, and it's very discouraging to them when they try to do something good, and that's the way they get treated by somebody. So they just wait and fish it out if they can.
Could we have, say that, if the attendant, I'm just making something up, if the attendant sees you go in there and you're gonna throw it in there and do something really bad, like broke glass in the cardboard, that was a real hummer, cause that wrecks the whole cardboard. You can't use it for anything. Take a picture of the darn license plate. That, sheriff said you could technically charge somebody with littering.
I mean, I'm not gonna question the sheriff, he's an intelligent man and does a great job what he does, but I think that'd be a very tough sell to a judge.
Well,
No, that's fine, I think mace would be a
Rule
great
number
idea.
rule number one, be thankful that they're actually coming into our centers to throw their garbage away.
Tasers would work too.
well, we got, hey, Julian, we just fixed 3 of them. They were one from Charlotte, one from Atlanta, and one from another Ritzy subdivision. They chose to dump the trash at the gate. They went through the trash. They had the option with the sheriff of paying the $1,000 fine or community service. They chose to pick up trash on the side of the road. So we do take care of that. If those out there that wanna throw the trash on the side of the road, and they open that bag up and they find a name and address, believe you me, and you do it enough times.
Don't tell them how to get away with it.
Hey, and then you do it enough times, you'll be helping me at the pool one summer.
I think we need to have,
Helper.
I agree 100%. We need to have the strictest laws that we can with regard to littering and with regard to recycling. I mean, I don't know when people are gonna realize that it costs them, the taxpayer, money to throw recyclables in the garbage.
Code enforcement officer.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the solid waste ordinance and the litter ordinance that I've drafted are now with, Mr. Steele, solid waste, that he's going over with the litter officer too. They'll be in front of the transportation committee in January. Those have the options to have the most strict ordinance. You must recycle all cardboard. Oh, it's not that we're
Transportation
gonna put it
committee.
in there. Ma'am?
Public safety.
Transportate.
He said public safety.
Did I say law enforcement?
You said transportation.
I didn't mean that. Well, yeah, they mean it the same time. So, but those 2 ordinances do have the options to have the most strict. Yeah, it's not saying they're all gonna go, it's the menu.
It's video
Pass
up.
on there, but I do have those written in there, so Mr. McCall and his committee will have that chance to send it on to council if they want to.
Well, that sounds good. I mean, we shouldn't let people abuse our attendance at the convenience centers. Well, but you know, sometimes it's just a matter of educating, because I was there a few weeks ago and this guy came, and I'm not exaggerating. He had a pickup truck that was loaded with boxes full of beer bottles. And he was fixing to take the first one and throw it in the trash, and I told him, wait. I said, it would be safer for the environment if you recycled those. And he looked at me and he goes, then where do I put it? I said, well, you just drive your car over to the other side and I'll show you. And he didn't really have a problem with that, but you gotta speak up. You know, you can't be afraid to speak up.
Motion to adjourn.
Sounds good to me.
Second.